So I'm like 17, I come home, and my dad's sitting there, my fucking brother's 45, really cool 45, and he's like talking about killing himself, and I'm like, dude, Dad, dude, you should do it, man. Like, you should fucking do it.
How does a child who suffered psychological abuse while growing up become the UFC champion? As far as UFC champions go, it doesn't get more controversial than Sean Strickland. Very few in the history of the sport can provoke emotions with their unapologetically blunt opinions more than the UFC's unlikely new middleweight king.
We need to go back to like taking women out of the workforce, and maybe that's where we fucked up, you guys. We let women vote. No offense.
Rumors swirling that the UFC attempted to thwart Sean Strickland's shot at the title against Israel Adesanya at UFC 293.
And the UFC don't want him embarrassing the company.
Join us as we delve into the life story of the man himself and find out what truly makes Sean Strickland such a polarizing figure in the world of mixed martial arts. Born and raised in Corona, California, it's fair to say Sean Strickland's life has been anything but ordinary. Strickland endured the torment of an abusive and alcoholic father throughout his childhood, an oppressive presence that cast shadows over his formative years. A younger Strickland never saw a peaceful day while growing up. He was in and out of school, and often looked at as someone with little to offer society in the future.
I mean, I wanted to fucking kill someone so bad as a kid. I'd walk around with a fucking knife, just hoping I still want to kill somebody. It just would make me feel good, I fucking love it.
Though Strickland doesn't remember ever being physically abused, he was exposed to a lot of psychological abuse and firsthand to other cruelties that he was often powerless to stop until things reached a boiling point.
Dad's dying of cancer, and he's doing his forgiveness speech, and I'm like, I don't give a fuck, dude. I'll go see you. He's like, Sean, I was really bad to you and your mom, but at least I never molested you.
Oh boy.
I was like, fuck yeah,
what
Dad.
A low bar.
Fuck, hey, cheers. Hey, you never fucked me.
Give me one of those oxys. I want to fucking ride this out with you.
Yeah, man.
According to Strickland, there was a particular night that he feared for his mother's life. And waiting under the bed, hearing his father strangling his mother and telling her she was going to die, he smashed his father over the head with a guitar and fled to call the cops.
So my dad gets on top of my mom and he starts fucking strangling her, right? And he's like, I'm gonna fucking kill you tonight. So me being a little kid, I get up. I'm like, fuck, the only thing I see is the guitar. My sister's guitar, she's still mad at me about it. I grab the guitar, just fucking smack it off his head, grab the phone, call the cops, run down the hill.
Oh my God.
My mom, that dumb bitch, bails him out of jail.
Strickland has often stirred controversy with his comments, from having to being very open about his neo-Nazi past. He embraced a lot of neo-Nazi ideologies inherited from his grandfather and his father, also confessing to hero-worshipping the ideology portrayed in the film American History X whilst growing up.
I mean, could you picture I don't even know what this is like. And no one even interjected in my life. Me being 12 years old, walking around doing the fucking Hail Hitler salute with a fucking swastika on my arm.
After being expelled from school for hate crimes, his mother decided to take him to an MMA gym. His entry into the world of MMA at 14 quickly became his escape and path to redemption. From the first day training, things changed for him, and he'd found an outlet for all of his pent-up frustrations.
My mom took me to an Empire MMA with a guy named Paul Guerrero, and I fucking loved it. I remember crying, after I got done sparring. I even know when I think about it, it makes my eyes water. Just I don't think I ever really experienced happiness until that day. So you gotta understand, you live your whole life in a certain mindset, and then you do something, and then you're just like, fuck, dude, this is what it feels like. This is what normal people experience. I fucking love this. I fucking love this,
Here, he met people of different races whilst training who helped him, and this motivated him to abandon his neo-Nazi ideologies, eventually expressing guilt over his past associations.
I will tell you about my dad. My father, abusive alcoholic, drank, got into pills later on. Everything about him I hated.
Yes.
Everything about him I hated. My dad was laying in bed one day, with a 45. I fucking walked up, he was talking about and I was like, Dad, you should fucking do it. You should fucking do it. I was 17. I was like, your wife left you, you're unemployed, you're a fucking drug addict, your life sucks, you should fucking do it. I took the gun, put it to his head, put his hand on it, said, Do it.
At the age of 18, Strickland had another violent altercation with his father, again resulting in police involvement. However, no charges were pressed. It was from this event Strickland and his mother moved out of his father's house before his father passed away some years later. Despite the toxic environment, Strickland shares a close bond with his mother, who had her own traumatic past herself. Though things looked up from here, the chaos Strickland experienced undoubtedly created a fighter molded by a turbulent past. Sean Strickland's journey in professional MMA began in 2008 with the King of the Cage promotion, where he achieved an unblemished 13-0 record before getting signed to the UFC in 2014. During his first stint in the promotion, he competed as a welterweight and went 7-3 in his first 10 before he became a free agent in 2018, with 2 of the losses coming to Santiago Ponzinibbio and Kamaru Usman. Strickland would be inactive for 2 years after this, however. In December 2018, Strickland was hit by a car while he was riding a motorcycle in Los Angeles, rendering him unconscious. He suffered numerous injuries and needed a knee operation after the accident.
Got in an accident. It wasn't my fault, but I've been blacked out for a good minute. I just came to after surgery.
I had a lot of doctors. Every doctor I spoke to was telling me that, hey, you can fight for sure, but you probably shouldn't fight. So the hardest thing was just kind of telling these doctors to shut up, like you don't know what I can or can't do.
2020 marked Strickland's return to the UFC, and he quickly gained a bigger reputation for himself, this time at middleweight, becoming known for his outlandish remarks and being extremely active, often taking short-notice fights and working his way to solidify himself as a main eventer. After going 5-0 in his return from injury, he'd earned himself a #1 contender fight at UFC 276 in a high-profile fight against the former Glory 2-division kickboxing champion Alex Pereira, who'd risen at a rapid pace in his short UFC tenure at the time. Strickland lost the fight via knockout in the first round after attempting to walk Pereira down before getting hit with a devastating hook.
Good because he's...
After a split decision loss to Jared Cannonier later that year, a quick turnaround taking a short-notice fight against Nasruddin Imavov proved successful again for Strickland, getting back to winning ways before a second-round knockout versus Abusupyan Magomedov in July 2023 followed. Luck was on Strickland's side, as a lack of contenders after Dricus Du Plessis' injury meant that he was the #1 option to headline against Israel Adesanya for the middleweight title at UFC 293. The fight that was foreshadowed in the back and forth the two had at the UFC 276 press conference the year before was on the cusp.
The man that beats off the cartoons is gonna beat me. Calm
Trust
down.
me, if
Calm down.
I can tell you what, if you win this fight, when we fight, I knock you out, I'm gonna do a TikTok dance over your grave.
Oh.
Despite rumored resistance by the UFC in making the fight, Israel Adesanya admittedly managed to convince the UFC to come around. Most felt it'd be a company PR nightmare for the UFC if the unthinkable happened here, with many feeling that he had no hope, and Israel Adesanya a 7-1 betting favorite. Very few gave Strickland a chance.
He's an idiot, and the UFC don't want him embarrassing the company.
One man who did was his former opponent and notorious rival of Adesanya, the former UFC middleweight champion, Alex Pereira. Pereira trained with Strickland prior to the bout, after losing to the stylebender earlier in 2023 himself, and backed the contender's chances.
The
first punch?
Se você fala primeiro aqui,
when you're doing it there,
esse aqui já não sai forte, ó. Eu parei aqui, ó, na frente, não é aqui, ó.
The unthinkable became true. In one of the biggest upsets in UFC history, Sean Strickland beat all odds to become UFC middleweight champion of the world in Sydney, Australia.
And undisputed UFC middleweight champion of the world, Sean Strickland.
Strickland shut down Adesanya completely, dropping him badly in round 1 before outpointing him through the rest of the fight as he defended brilliantly against the champion's leg kicks and walked him down with excellent pressure, boxing skill, and distance management. In a rare moment, Strickland was visibly emotional at the end of the fight. After stunning the world at UFC 293, many couldn't wait to see one man's reaction above all. None other than Dana White. Dana himself probably couldn't believe what he was having to say.
Came into hostile territory, the whole world talking shit about him, the whole world saying he couldn't do it, a 7-1 underdog, came in, almost finished him in the first round, and won the championship, won the world title, man.
Going into the fight, everyone from fans to top pros felt Sean Strickland had no route to victory against a lethal striker like Adesanya. The magnitude of what he achieved can't be understated, nor can the magnitude of what he overcame in his personal life to get to this moment to begin with. There are many things to berate Strickland for, whether it be his public homicidal thoughts or consistent misogynistic comments, but it can't be denied that he is one of the most unique champions in UFC history. As for what's next, with Adesanya declaring himself out until 2027, Dricus Du Plessis eagerly awaits the chance to dethrone the newly crowned champion, setting the stage for a highly anticipated clash in the new year. At UFC 297 on January 20th, 2024.